a paradise of love divine, dreaming of a pair of eyes that looked in mine. Beautiful Ohio, in dreams again I see visions of what used to be.
Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the JoeCitizen.net podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Keith.
I'm Rick.
That's Rick.
And I'm Wes.
This is Wes. We're coming to you live from an undisclosed location. And in this episode, which we thought was going to be the first episode, but the American flag ended up being the first episode. In this episode here, we are going to be discussing something that's very, very important coming up on August 8th. And that would be this thing.
Issue 1.
Issue 1. And for those of you that do not understand yet or know exactly what issue 1 is, you might get one of these in your mail. But it's actually kind of groundbreaking for the state of Ohio in that there's going to be the possibility of a 111-year law that will change the way that we actually amend the Constitution here in Ohio. Rick, do you want to talk about it a bit more?
Well, I know the big issue here is it's too easy to change our Constitution at this point. At least that's what I believe most people are feeling it is. 50 plus 1 or other important issues like our Constitution is a 2/3, and if you get into any kind of business bylaws or any nonprofit bylaws or things, those are generally in the 60% range. So I don't know why we have to be 50 plus 1.
I'll tell you, it's strange too, because obviously this is a partisan issue. Obviously, the majority of conservatives, libertarians, Republican Party is in support of issue 1. They understand that the tyranny of the majority, the same thing that our founding fathers were worried about, could play a severe role. And I think when you start to look at the outside influences that come in and that plan our state, and they call themselves citizens initiatives, they're out there hooting and hollering that people's votes are disenfranchised or people are going to lose their freedom to make decisions. And the party that's pushing it requires 60% of their members to change their bylaws. So this is for them. They understand that the state of Ohio and not really the state of Ohio, but the country in general is a conservative thing, and so anything that they're going to cede power into the ability to change their to implement their far left agenda scares them. And,
well, what are some of the arguments they're doing for the reason we shouldn't change it, or what are our arguments of why we should change it?
Before we go there, can you explain in the simplest of terms what issue 1 actually is going to be?
Yeah, so issue 1 is a constitutional amendment. It'll be a vote of the people that requires citizens initiatives to receive 60% support across the state of Ohio in order to become a constitutional amendment. So in order to enable to change our Constitution, to add a constitutional amendment, it'll now require 60% of the people to support that change.
So when we're referring to this, because I'm probably sure that a lot of people don't know the difference between citizens initiative and what would be handled actually by the legislature. So when we're talking citizens initiative, those are all laws that are actually brought up by citizens.
Correct.
That they want to have added to the Constitution.
Well, I think it's important to differentiate between laws and constitutional amendments. We're not talking about changing laws. We're talking about amending Ohio's founding document.
Right.
We're talking about amending the Constitution. And I also think the other sort of, and the Dems talk about this, but one of the most important things in that is they say citizen initiated. Majority of the time, yes, it's citizen initiated, but it's not really citizen initiated. It's initiated by interest groups that have a set agenda to make a change to the Constitution to benefit them. And in this case, it's a wide swath of things. It's you've heard people talk about the abortion amendment. You've heard people talk about marijuana. You've heard people talk about redistricting. They tell us that things are gerrymandered, that there's too much control. But at the end of the day, the idea that you can make such drastic changes, not to laws, you can make such drastic changes to the Constitution by a simple majority is a little bit scary. And we're not talking about small changes. We're talking about big changes that impact the lives of 11 million Ohioans across the state.
Right.
So this is a safeguard that ensures that the majority's voice is heard, not just a simple majority, but a real majority of the people. And it's really no different and really falls under even the threshold of a constitutional amendment to the United States Constitution, where three quarters of the states, and I wasn't real good in math, but Mr. Patch told me that 3/4 equals 75%.
Right.
And so 75% of the states, meaning in each state's number of legislators is different, but that's a tall order. And when you amend such an important document, whether it's on the federal level or whether it's on the state level, it should require a real majority of people to support the amendment.
Yeah. So if this passes, will any of the current amendments then be reviewed that are there? Because it's my understanding that there's somewhere about different news sources say different things, but it's anywhere from there's 172 amendments in the Constitution currently, right? Or is it at 227? Because I was reading a couple things that were different.
Yeah, I don't know what that number is, but this would not impact any of that.
Okay.
This only impacts
Anything
any
new.
Constitutional amendment moving forward.
Right.
So, if there's an organization, and I saw just this week that there was a group that submitted signatures to legalize recreational marijuana.
Right.
So, why in the world we need to legalize recreational marijuana through a constitutional amendment? I mean, I think if people are listening to this, let's go down this rabbit hole a second. Is in Ohio, you elect 99 members of the state legislature. You elect 33 members of the state senate. You elect a governor, lieutenant governor, auditor, treasurer, and attorney general. Those people are elected by the citizens of Ohio. The legislature makes the laws. They propose laws. Citizens can as easily go to a member of their legislature and say, hey, Mr. Legislator, I think we need to do X, Y, and Z. And that legislator has the ability to carry that piece of legislation. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about making changes on laws. What this is about making changes to the Constitution. It's a much higher threshold.
Right.
And so anything moving forward would require that 60%. And so I'll go back to the marijuana thing. The folks that want legalized marijuana, in fact, there's members of the Republican legislature that have introduced recreational marijuana laws, but they know that their colleagues can't support it because when they support it, their citizens are going to be upset about it, and potentially they won't be reelected. One vote's kind of hard to make that argument on. But nonetheless, instead of going through the legislative process, this group decided to go out and collect 222,000 signatures. 222,000 signatures would put it on the Constitution for 11 million people. Mm-hmm. And then right now, to change the Constitution would be 50% plus one additional person. And this amendment, issue 1, which is smart, would say, okay, wait a second. Let's get 60% of the state of Ohio to agree with this before we make such drastic changes to our Constitution. It doesn't require it. They can still go through the legislative process. We're not circumventing their right to petition their government. We're just saying, in order to make this big change to the Constitution, it's going to require a higher threshold. So that's why we're saying, vote yes, people, vote yes.
Well, that's how U.S. Constitution is. United States Constitution of America, it's 2/3. I think it's 2/3, 3/4 of the states, but 2/3. And isn't also this new potential amendment, non-amendment, this issue 1 has something to do that all of the counties will have to have a decision in this process and not just half of the counties?
That's right. So in order to collect signatures, and I wish I would have brought the amendment with me because I don't have it right in front of me, but it's funny, I was having a phone call about this. I'm having a conversation as I pulled in here to this undisclosed, better than the EIB network spot we're in.
Working on it.
It's awesome. I was just having a conversation about this threshold, and the individual that I was speaking with is like, I don't know, 44, 88, that's hard. But I believe it requires 5% signatures from each county.
And if I'm not mistaken, they had to have participated in the gubernatorial election, correct?
Well, it's 5% of, so let's say you're in little old Auglaize County, Ohio, right?
Right.
And for sake of easy math, there was 100 people that voted in Auglaize County in the last gubernatorial election. Then you would have to get five signatures.
Right.
So it's not 5% of registered voters. It's not 5% of the county population. It's 5% of the number of electors from the previous gubernatorial election.
Right.
So obviously getting 5% in Auglaize County is not the same number threshold as it is in Summit County or Montgomery County or Cleveland or anywhere, right? Cuyahoga, anywhere, it doesn't really matter. It's 5%. But again, they're upset about this because they know that when you get on the western side, and really even in the southeast, but when you really look at the western side of the state, and I'll say from the intersection of I-70 and 75, that's a hint to our undisclosed location, or in that vicinity, if you go west, all the way from Williams County, Lucas County, and you just drive on 127, a great little state route we have through Ohio, 127 all the way through Cincinnati. That is as red can be. Those are church-going, conservative people, salt of the earth people. And the rule, it's small, right? So if you're going to put an amendment on the ballot and you're going to say, I only need 44 counties to get that, would you ever go to Williams County or Henry County or Auglaize? You would never go to those counties because people are going to, you're not going to get 5% of the electorate that agrees with it.
Right.
So again, this is sort of like, well, let's look at a way where we just only have to do a small number of counties, half of our counties, and get 5%. And that's, to me, it makes a lot of sense. It's evenly divided. Rick, I was going to call you. I wanted to do a graphic where it was like, do you want this half of the state to make your decisions, or this
half of the state?
Yeah, which half do you want to make?
Send it. I'll edit it in.
Yeah,
I'll throw it in if you got something. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think that is it makes sense, and we'll go down another little rabbit hole as I sort of think about it. Is we're not talking about changing laws that were established 10 years ago, right? We're changing laws that were established
111 years.
111 years ago. Now let's just take a common sense step back and say, do you think anybody 111 years ago, do you think anybody in Montgomery County interacted with somebody in Trumbull County 111 years ago? If so, maybe one or two. It probably took 4, 7, 8, 10 days
to get there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? So we're not talking about...
Well, we still had the telegram, at least back then.
Yeah. The horses, the Pony Express would have got us there. But we're talking about an entire world that is completely different. And this idea that I can see why they said half the counties. It would have been nearly impossible 111 years ago to get to all 88 counties. It just logistically impossible. Today, it's easy.
Well, not only is it easier, but it's 100% of the people have an option to make a decision on something that's this important, and not just the selected few they want to make the decision.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm just trying to find some justification of why they think this 44 is a good idea. That's the only thing I can say is that, 100 years ago, okay, it's going to be really hard. But I think a voter in Montgomery County has as much say as a voter in any of the other 87 counties. And I spent last year, 2022, it's been a little over a year ago, and we went to all 88 counties. As far as
I remember when you did that. Actually, yes, I do.
So I can tell you, anybody that's listening to this, we live in a fantastic state, and we live in a very diverse state. Southeast Ohio is beautiful with rolling hills, and it's beautiful, but it's much different than Lucas County, which is diagonally opposite of it. Southeast Ohio versus Northwest Ohio. It's completely different areas. So it's not like we're all exactly the same. We don't all, for the most part, we're Ohioans, but we don't all have the same viewpoints on everything. And I think all corners of our state should have a say and how our our Constitution is done. I would never advocate for every single law to require 60% of people to support
exactly.
it. I'm talking about our founding document, and that's a special thing.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers knew it too, right? With 2/3 and then 3/4 of the states. And hopefully, I'm not making a fool of myself. I hope I got that number right. But yeah, I mean, it's important.
Cool. Tell you what, we're going to take a very quick break here, and we're going to hear from one of our sponsors here, joecitizen.net, with the Joe Citizen Podcast. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking more about issue 1 here very, very shortly. Stay tuned.
Hey, you! Tired of wearing the same old boring shirts as everyone else? Then it's time to check out our on-demand printing service. Threadfather specializes in made-to-order shirts. You can even upload your own artwork, or you can choose from our hundreds of stock designs. Want to make a statement? We've got holiday and sportswear that will have everyone talking. And don't worry about limited options. We've got hoodies, crew necks, t-shirts, tank tops, and even youth sizes. We've got a fast turnaround time, so you can rock your new shirt in no time. We're family owned and operated, so you can trust us to give you the best quality and service. So what are you waiting for? Visit us today and start your order.
And we are back thanks to Threadfather.com. Threadfather. Official logo embroiderer of the Joe Citizen Podcast. So we're going to continue with our...
just remember, the Joe Citizen Podcast is about we the people. That's each and every individual person, all of us, like a me and a you, and not some big organization and not Republican or Democrat. It's people. It's people. We the people have a chance to be able to air our thoughts and opinions. So that's...
What a wonderful opportunity to put this on. I mean, just for people to come in and express, and hopefully for those that are able to listen and begin the conversation, right? We're not here with an agenda.
No.
We're here to talk through it. And obviously, Rick and I, we have our opinions on where we're at on issue 1.
Right.
And, I'll dispel some of these crazy myths that some of these groups are putting out there. But at the end of the day, they say all the time, one voice, one vote, or whatever their silly logo is on that. And exactly. Everybody has one vote. It's how many of those
votes.
Yeah, how many voices are supportive of an issue versus unsupportive of an issue. One person, one vote. You got to be 18. It's pretty straightforward.
So, as we've been reading up on the issue, because, I actually did not know about it. Strangely enough, I did not know it was coming up on the ballot until I got one of these flyers to apply for a absentee ballot.
Absentee, yeah.
Which, is another subject that we can talk about with a month of absentee ballots, and that before we have a month of voting for this.
So what you're saying is no excuses. There should be zero excuses.
Oh, really, there's too much time.
I think there's too much time.
Yeah.
I really
but
do.
You're right, no excuses.
I mean, there's and we can debate timing, but for this in November and until they change, if they change, how early you can vote.
Yeah.
Every single person has an opportunity to vote. Every single person.
So in reading up, once I did get the flyer, I wanted to find out what it was, and actually, it turned out to be probably one of the most important, if not a historical change for the state of Ohio. And as I start reading, on pros and cons, and I got Rick's point of view on it, and I started checking up, and strangely enough, an organization like the ACLU has posted some stuff on their website, ACLU Ohio, and they are apparently adamantly opposed to this. So what do we do to how do we spread the word to people who would, how do we argue against the ACLU when it comes down to telling other people why they should vote yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, as I don't know that, I have zero idea really of the influence that the ACLU has as to people believe, what they say. It's sort of My viewpoint is if the ACLU opposes it, then I should support it. But that's just kind of in my nature. And we went through some of that stuff earlier, but they talked about we live in a democracy. Of course, we live in a democracy. That's what it's called. But in reality, we live in a constitutional republic.
Correct.
And our Constitution lays out that there are elected representatives. The smaller the scale, the smaller the people, the more influence. I'll tell everybody, I think your local mayor or your local city council person, they have more impact on your daily life than the president of the United States. But our founders laid out a constitutional republic, and we have representatives that make the laws. At times, citizens have the ability to initiate to change those laws. And we talked a little bit about earlier, they can go through their member of Congress or their rep or whatever, state rep, whatever. Or they can initiate a ballot initiative. But they're never initiated by just citizens. They're always the ACLU. They're always Planned Parenthood.
Right.
They're always Doctors for Reproductive Rights. They're not yes, maybe they're citizens. But we're talking about millions and millions of dollars being put forth on an issue. And we have to really investigate why they want to change it. And is it really because, as the ACLU says, one voice, one vote? Is that really what the ACLU is protecting? Or is that just a good campaign slogan to make you feel good that, yeah, my vote should count? Yes, your vote counts. Of course your vote counts. What it is instead of needing 5 friends to agree with you, now you need 6 friends to agree with you to change the Constitution. I mean, it's really not that hard.
Nice way to put the math to people.
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta adjust his mic. We can't see his face. Hold on. Keep going.
Keep going.
It's probably better without seeing my face, to be honest.
I'm the one who claims exclusive right to ugliness around here. There we go.
All right, is that all right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
All right.
All right, we're back on.
Go ahead.
Now, of course, the people only listening to us by voice and not by video, his face didn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It didn't matter.
It's a bald head. At least I don't have glasses on top of my head. Normally I have glasses on top of my head.
Want mine? Yeah,
No,
that's my role,
It's
too.
just where I wear them.
Always looking for them, too, right?
Yeah, it's on where they are.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
But back to your question, I think why does the ACLU oppose this? You can go through their things there, but it's to me. We're not going to find out the real reason in whatever they put on their website.
Well, they claim that voting yes for this puts corrupt politicians over people.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting. We find ourselves in a little bit of a pickle here. There are corrupt politicians. You know what's exciting is Ohio just convicted the last Speaker of the House, who's going to spend 20 years in prison for being corrupt.
Right.
So this idea that corrupt politicians, they get caught in Ohio. They go to prison in Ohio. We should wear that as a badge of honor, that the crap that they pulled and what they tried to pull.
No matter what party they belong to.
I'm a Republican. I work with Republican candidates, and I'm celebrating the fact that we are a good people, right? And the majority, I know the majority of the state legislature, they are good people. They care. They run for the right reasons. In our local delegation here, I have Phil Plummer, who's the Republican Party chairman. He's a state legislator from the Vandalia area that spent 30 years in the sheriff's department, 10 years as sheriff. I mean, this is a guy that dedicated his life, especially the last 10 years as sheriff, of eradicating drug cartels in Montgomery County. He got national attention for it. And then went to the legislature because he saw a need in the mental health community. He didn't go because he wanted to be something else, and so this idea that we have corrupt politicians, to me, is just a lame excuse because it feels good, right? It feels good to go out there and say, this guy's an SOB and this guy is this and that. And there's no facts or no truth behind it, when really the facts and truth tell you that, his colleagues are the one that kicked him out of the House.
Well, we were discussing how this would not really actually eliminate any corrupt politician, or no matter how it gets voted, it will never eliminate corrupt politicians because they just find a way to work around what just gets passed.
Well, and really, what it does is it's going to make it a lot more expensive for these groups that come in from out of state, these groups that, and if we'll sit here all day long, right? If you like what has happened in California, if you like the world that is California, in their cities and in their policies, then maybe you're going to be a no vote, maybe. But that same money and that same mentality that changed California is working its way into Ohio to legalize all sorts of things down the road.
Yep.
To make it much, they could go in now and we can stop massive tort reform. Like there's all sorts. If we don't pass this, what's to say these same groups don't come in and make it extremely easy to sue businesses? And before you know it, now we have the small business community is going to be eliminated because they simply can't afford to compete.
Right.
From a legal standpoint.
It's almost at that point now to impose so many regulations.
And so this idea that it's because of corrupt politicians, all this really is those with some sort of an agenda are looking to make it. Those with the real, let me rephrase that. Those that are looking out for the best interests of the Constitution and the people of Ohio are making it harder for those that have ulterior motives to come into the state of Ohio and change our Constitution. Again, if you can walk away with anything from listening to this, is we are changing our Constitution. We are not changing the laws. What else you got? What else are they saying?
Well, they're saying the real culprit is the General Assembly itself.
Of course. Isn't it amazing that there is no there's no blame game, right? There's not sitting up here telling us the merits of 50% plus one. They're not up here telling us the merits of 50% plus one and why that it needs to stay the same way for 112 years. And they're not sharing any of that. All they're doing is creating a villain, right? The General Assembly. Ooh, the General Assembly, they're so bad.
Now, I don't know how deep down this rabbit hole we want to go with certain issues, but apparently a lot of people in the abortion industries too are saying that this is a low blow stopgap to stop from the pro-abortion bills from passing.
Well,
now, this is the only way that it can be done because they're saying apparently that the majority of Ohioans want for something to be passed for abortion up to birth, apparently.
Here's what I'll tell you. I would almost guarantee if you put a common sense abortion amendment on the ballot, an amendment that, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and this is not my personal opinion, but if you put something on the ballot that would say 12 weeks with exceptions for rape and incest and things like that, I will almost guarantee you that it would fly by the 60% threshold number.
I would agree on that.
Would fly by that number.
Yeah.
However, that's not, and I don't think this 60% is just about what they want to do in November. But that's not what their legislation says. Their legislation is so far to the left that it allows for abortions really up till the time of birth.
Yep.
It takes away, it starts to get into a lot of the other social issues being pushed, the transgenderism, parental rights. I think in this, it starts to take away parents' rights and whether a mother and a father know what their child is doing, and hides it behind this idea of patient practitioner, doctor privacy, confidentiality stuff. I mean, the left is not being honest with people, and I think when anybody, just like you did, when you begin to take a really deep dive into what this really means, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Well, I just think I'm about the school issue. When the school thinks they don't, when they can tell us we don't have the right to know what they're going to do with our or my children.
Right.
Well, they're in for the battle of their life. I mean, they can't decide how my child's going to be.
That's
they can't. The purpose of the school system should be just education.
Yeah, I mean,
not about what social values you want them to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's indoctrination to an extent, and I grew up, and I'm sure you guys grew up in the same way. As I went to school, and we didn't talk about any of that stuff. We talked about. I was tired of math and science and all that crap. But you're exactly right about that. To me, there's a bigger agenda. There's probably a much higher agenda than there is just whatever they want to do in November or whatever they're going to do after that. But if you can break down the nucleus of the family, if you can take away the rights of moms and dads don't have a say of what their students or what their children are taught in schools, we're in a scary place. And we've seen it, and people think, oh, it's always kind of funny. Starts out as a conspiracy theory, and then you find that a teacher,
it was true.
It was true.
It's
right?
really happening.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's a scary situation, and but back to our issue again, is all of that stuff, all the stuff we're talking about, whether it's schools or whether it's the transgender stuff or whether it's abortion or whether it's tort reform, whatever the issue is, all of that can be addressed inside the legislative process. All of that can be addressed.
There are other states, as far as I know, that also have changed or adopted or have had for a while the 60% rule anyway. I believe Arizona's one. I'm trying to remember the other ones that I read.
Now, I think there's 6 or 8 of them. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I know there's also states where they don't allow for citizens initiatives.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just legislature.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, can you imagine? Let's play a little fun game here. Let's go back to 1776, right? And the old story that Ben Franklin walked out the back of Independence Hall, and a girl asked him, what kind of government did you create as Mr. Franklin? And he said, a republic if you could keep it.
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine Ben Franklin had to walk out the back, and 51% of the country could have said, imagine where it would be today if 51% of the country had said, nope, we don't agree with you guys. You're just a bunch of rich white landowners, and we're not going with your way. Can you imagine what we would have done?
Well, we wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's
right.
I thought that was called the Civil War. That
Yeah,
happened a little sometime later, right?
Well, I mean, the Civil War had a lot of issues, but
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, it's in the Civil. I always get nervous talking about that stuff, but the Civil War was a horrendous time in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
But the outcome of the Civil War led to amazing things for segments of our population. So what's beautiful about the United States is we continue to grow and we continue to get better. And most of the time, we lead the world in good.
I agree on that one.
I'd have to say we probably most isn't enough.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for us, just imagine where the world would be.
That's right.
So where can everybody go to find out more information that would be actually accurate for them to make some decisions so that there's no media bias in the newspaper or website articles or what?
I think they need to know what you did, right? And I don't have the websites in front of me, but I think Protect Our Constitution is an organization that's out there. Protect Women's Rights, Protect Ohio Women's Rights, something along those lines. I'll get you the links and you can put them up.
Yeah, please, because we're going to put them up.
Put them up for folks. But there's a plethora of resources out there as to where you can get that information. Call your county party, call your Republican Party or your Democrat Party if you want to see what the other side is saying. But I think there's a plethora of those resources out there.
Well, I always think it always astounds me when we're talking about special interest and the amount of money that actually goes into any of the initiatives, whether it be a law or a candidate or anything. It astounds me the amount of money that people raise in order to either run or to get these issues passed. And I never know how they need so much money to even win these things. When all it takes is for someone to go on the web and really just start kind of digging.
Well, we're all three of us are probably a little bit dorky. We like talking about this stuff. And we sit in here in the undisclosed location and have these conversations. But in all fairness to the majority of Ohioans is they're busy living their lives, right?
There's that.
There's baseball and there's softball and there's soccer and there's swim team and there's grandmas and grandpas going to events
and working 60, 70 hours a week to survive with this stupid inflation.
That's exactly right. So it's awesome that you guys put this together, that hopefully it's an outlet we can share it enough that they can hear a little bit, just some average people's conversations about it. But I think it's a compassing upon us to tell that story. I mean, those that we all have our lanes in life, right? So if you're listening to this, I'm gonna guess you're on the what I would call the political spectrum of some sort. But share it with your friends. That's the only way they're going to know. And these little devices, I mean, everybody's probably got 700-800 contacts in their phone.
Exactly.
Share.
I have maybe 7 or 8.
Well, yeah.
I have no friends.
That's why we're in an undisclosed location.
You have no problems.
That's probably right.
But, send a text, share your opinions. I think that's the best way to do it. You mentioned it.
Well, they're good old-fashioned grassroots.
That's right.
Just talk to each other.
Yeah.
And you can go door to door in your neighborhood or go to your local politicians' events when they come in town. Find out what they're really saying. Get a chance to talk to them and ask them questions. And
that's right.
Then you know yourself. Don't listen to what they tell you on the television. Just don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's all designed and set up to fit a narrative that they want you to believe.
Yeah.
Whether it's the right one or not, whether it's the truth or a lie, it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to dig deep. You have to. It's nothing is surface level. You have to dig deep. You have to really investigate it for yourself. And back to your original point, people just don't take the time, and I don't fault them for it. It's just hard to do.
They don't have the time.
Right.
It's so confusing, and just look at all the things that go on in our life every day. And if you own a business, a small business guy, husband and wife or whatever, or male or female, whatever you want to. Sheesh.
Yeah, it's nonstop.
They're running you ragged all day long, and then you got to come home to your family and run to all the ball games and tennis games and school events and things. And
that's exactly right.
Who has time to get involved with anything? And in fact, I think they know that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's anything they can.
Yeah, they're counting on.
Yeah, they're counting that we're not going to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you want to do any closing comments that we haven't covered, or
vote yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of nothing. I think we've covered a lot of things, but I think what's important, and again, I'll reiterate it, is we're talking about amending the Constitution of the state of Ohio.
Right.
And there's zero reason that 60% of Ohioans should not support that. And that's not a left or a right issue. That is
that works both ways.
It works both ways, and it really is about protecting the Constitution from outside interests, whether that's on the right or that's on the left or that comes from down the middle. It's ensuring that 60% of Ohioans that vote support it. I think that's the most important piece.
There was one thing that actually came to my mind on this. I was reading that we actually just passed some kind of law, or I don't know if it was in the Constitution Amendment or not, but there is a law now that actually is going to be changing the fact of special elections like this. Isn't this one of the last ones we're going to see? Am I wrong on that?
It should be like the last August election. Yeah.
The last August one.
And that was done not through a constitutional amendment. That was done through a law.
Okay.
It was done by the legislature.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's kind of important that this is probably going to be one of the last ones.
Well, and I think it's important that, from that standpoint, I'm glad they're having it in August. I think this is so timely. It needs to be done now. But I also think that it's important that we do everything we can to ensure that the elections are held, on a primary date and on a general election date. And, people have a set schedule. They know when they're going to vote, right?
Yeah.
In presidential years, you'll vote in March, and non-presidential years, you'll vote in May, and then you'll vote in November. Pretty straightforward. I think let me say thank you to both of you guys. I know this is episode 2, and how in the world I got to be guest number 2 is crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
Probably thank the guys at Thread
Fathers.
I mean, wow, like the godfathers of Thread, I guess.
That's exactly what it is.
It's awesome.
You're going to like this shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
whether
thank you
you
for
like
this,
it or not.
Thank you for this nice T-shirt. And
that was produced this morning
really
on a last-minute thought on my part.
Oh.
That's how fast we
hot
can
off the
produce it.
presses.
Yeah.
You do good stuff. Your
But doing
PJ
it-
promotions and all that.
Yeah, I've been
they're awesome.
doing it a long time now. You're starting to give away our disclosed location.
Oh,
Whoops.
oops! Edit that out.
But most importantly, we want the people, the everyday people that go to work in the morning and go to church on Sundays or go to the ball games with their kids. And we want to hear your side of it because, and I've mentioned on the other podcast that we did, you won't get that opportunity on NBC and ABC and CBS or even Fox unless you're forking over a slew of money to be
That's right.
one of their And what do they call them guys over there? They're,
Commentators?
no, they're paid something. I forget what it is right now, but no, not a host.
Wait, do I get paid?
It's in the mail.
T-shirts.
It's in the mail. Yeah.
Now, what do you have to do for the rest of the time before August 8th in promoting this?
So, I don't have any official capacity. I've got some signs in the back of my truck that I've got to deliver to somebody, and
All right.
we're gonna, we're gonna knock.
You already picked those up, by the way?
I did.
Okay.
We're gonna knock doors on Saturday. We're gonna meet up at the Subway in Vandalia, that parking lot in Vandalia, and knock doors. So, I'm just gonna give it my time to go door to door and share what we're doing.
Is there, can they call a Republican GOP and
Yeah,
the
who
way
can they
they
call?
can get involved or
Yeah, I
something?
mean, you can call the GOP. I think the number's 937-461-1776.
I'll put that up.
1776.
I'll put
Yeah,
that up. Is
and-
it? Say
Yeah.
that again, 937?
461-1776.
Cool. All right, I'll put that up
And
in graphics.
we're gonna walk this weekend, the 15th, the 22nd, and then the 5th of August. And I think this weekend we're in Vandalia and Huber Heights area. So if you're in that area and you hear this before then, we'd love to have you. 10
Good.
a.m. Yeah.
Good.
Well, other than that, I don't know what more we could really talk about this because we could go a lot of areas, but the most important thing is look it up, do some research.
And you're changing the Constitution, folks.
Yep.
The Constitution.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
So be careful.
Be careful.
You got any closing statements?
Actually, I'm not a real big talker. I listen. I like to put people together and let them express their opinions and views. And Joe Citizens.
You're just caught in the
Joe
crossfire.
Citizens. I am the crossfire.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
But, well, just people. Let's get out there and get involved and call your local politicians. That's what you need to do. Call your local GOP or
Yeah.
what other party association. We're all sitting here. We're GOP people, but we're really what's right for America as a whole, and
Why we do
not just party line.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
So
Go ahead.
Just for any of your ideas or your stories, we want them. Go to joecitizen.net, and there's a
info at joecitizen.net.
either way.
Yeah.
If you go to joecitizen.net, it'll take you to the online page, and you can navigate through it. And there's a place where you can say, "I request a story, request a subject matter, or I got a guest I'd like to see you put on," or whatever it is you want to do. And as I said in the last one, if you have a subject that you want to talk about, but you don't want to be known, let us know what it is, and we'll get your message out. So, joecitizenpodcast.net.
And that's going to close it up for episode 2 here of the Joe Citizen podcast. I don't know why. I was looking over there because the camera used to be there, but now it's there.
Before we go, I do want to thank Wes for coming.
this is
Yes,
awesome.
Absolutely.
This is awesome.
I've
Yeah.
known Wes for quite a while. We've worked together on a lot of projects and things, but he's a good person.
Thanks, man. This
All
is
right.
great. This is great.
Yep. So vote yes on
Yes.
issue 1, August 8th,
Or vote early.
or vote
Vote
early
early.
if you want.
Yep.
And thank you once again for watching episode 2 of the Joe Citizen podcast. We will let you know when the third one is coming in because this guy is going to be the subject matter for that one, we think. So
We've been trying to get to that.
we've been
but
trying to get to that.
Problem is, there's too much in my closet to put into one episode.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again for episode 3 here at the Joe Citizen podcast at joecitizen.net. Everyone have a good night.
See
or
you
a
back
good day.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Beautiful Ohio, in dreams again I see visions of